Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to one of our best practice webinars featuring Ruff Start Rescue. Ruff Start Rescue was our 2019 Dogs Rule recipient, and we're here today to learn more about their ComPAWtibility match program. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. My name is Meg Meredith, Grants Manager here at the PEDIGREE Foundation, and I'll also be your host for today's event. Joining me today are Pamela Nelson, Director of Marketing and Development, and Jill Chi, Application Manager and Matchmaker from Ruff Start Rescue. Ladies, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Thanks, Meg. My name is Pam, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Development, as Meg said. I've been with Ruff Start for about 2.5 years and oversee the department that wrote the grant for this Dogs Rule Pedigree Foundation grant, and have also done a lot of work through the program pieces that we'll be sharing with you today.
And hi, my name is Jill Chi. I am one of the application managers and the matchmaker with Ruff Start, and I have been with the organization since October of 2020, so I'm coming up on my 1-year mark. I am going to be making great use of the ComPAWtibility quiz that we just implemented within the last month or so, so I'm really excited to share what we've been doing with you.
Perfect. Thanks, ladies. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate as an attendee today. I've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You're listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You can also submit chat questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel that you can see here. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to just do a real quick poll. And we'll launch that here. And so just to ask, how many attendees currently have a matching program in place in their organization? I'll give you about 30 seconds. We've got about 50% of you that have voted. Okay, great. I'm going to close this. So about 33% of you have formal matching programs in place. 22% have informal matching, kind of on the fly or as you find out information about the pets in your care. And then 44% of you have no program in place currently. And Pam, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Meg. All right, so before we get into the meat of the actual ComPAWtibility match program, I wanted to give you a snapshot of Ruff Start Rescue in general to let you know kind of our environment where we sit. So the mission of Ruff Start Rescue is that we're dedicated to saving the lives of animals in need. We improve animal welfare in communities through adoption, education, and providing resources for people and pets. Ruff Start was founded in 2010, and we're based in Princeton, Minnesota, which is kind of right in the middle of Minnesota. We're about an hour, little over an hour north of the Twin Cities area. And we operate as a 99% volunteer / foster-based animal rescue. We do have 28 staff members. There's 18 full-time and 10 part-time staff members. But for the most part, we are run by amazing volunteers and fosters. Since 2010, we've taken in over 17,000 animals and have found them their forever homes. 3,300 of those were in 2020 alone. So if you're in animal welfare, you know 2020, there was a huge demand for adoptable animals. So to give you kind of a better snapshot of kind of our normal intake numbers, in 2018, we had just over 2,000 animals come into rescue. And then in 2019, we had about a 26% increase, and we're at almost 2,600 animals. So we are taking in a lot of animals for being a foster-based rescue, especially based on our location. We are active around the entire state of Minnesota, and we have fosters and volunteers across the state and volunteers actually across the country because we do have remote volunteer opportunities. And then we also educate the community, share resources with those who are struggling, and offer an annual preventative vetting clinic. And we also provide TNR services for our local community. Next. So this is kind of our agenda that we'll talk through during the presentation, but these are the areas within our ComPAWtibility match program. So the first big piece of it is our ComPAWtibility match quiz that we've worked really, really hard on. It is live on our website, and we'll take you through an actual quiz. So you can see, the engagement and the types of questions we're asking. Then we also have our foster and adopter connections. And so the whole point of our grant funding was to strengthen connections and communications with our fosters and adopters. And we're doing that through our matchmaker program, which Jill oversees, and she'll be talking about that. Virtual home visits, we actually wrote about doing virtual home visits and virtual adoption events before COVID was around. So before the world was forced into all things virtual, we were already going that direction. We also added an internal phone system and a text message system, which when I talk about those things, we ended up having to pivot our original idea to something a little different because of COVID. Not a good thing or a bad thing. It was good that we already had the infrastructure in place because it did make surviving COVID as a nonprofit a little bit easier. And then finally, we'll talk about post-adoption support that we offer our adopters, including our email welcome series and our veterinary support. Next. Okay, so getting into our quiz that we put together, our original idea for this ComPAWtibility match quiz was to quickly allow people interested in adopting the opportunity to search for their potential new family member in a fun and interactive way. So instead of doing a static filtration on your current adoptable animal page, this is something separate. And we'll actually go through a quiz here soon so you can see how it does differ from just a basic filter. We did run into some challenges with this. We had originally intended this to be very volunteer driven, and our volunteers, we had 2 very prominent volunteers working on this, and for reason outside of anything to do with Ruff Start, personal reasons, they ended up moving on. One literally moved across the country and was not able to help with the program. So it kind of got delayed, and then with COVID, a lot of our attention that originally was going towards this had to be, our focus had to shift because we had all of these urgent things we needed to cover with COVID. And then we also engaged a developer to actually build out the back end of the quiz. And our current animal database is rescue groups, and our developers, while they did have some rescue groups experience, it wasn't in exactly the thing that we were asking them to do or create. And so that did lead to some delays. And I'll talk through some refinements that we're still planning for our quiz. So it's definitely kind of a living project, and we're not 100% happy with where it's at, but it's definitely much better than not having anything at all. And the feedback we've gotten so far from our volunteers, our fosters, and the general public who've taken this quiz is that they've really enjoyed it. And they do feel like it's going to be a big help for them finding their next furry family member. So Meg, if you wanted to go ahead and drive through a quiz, we can see how that looks.
Yes.
So yeah, right now the link to this is located on our main homepage on our website, and then it's also located under our Adopt drop down under adoptable animals. So this is where that takes you. So this is a basic information about, it's very short, it probably doesn't even take 2 minutes to do this quiz. And then it does talk a little bit about, you know, the disclaimer kind of, that this is like a fun quiz and the answers or the results that you get may not match 100% what you're looking for because there's a variety of environmental, medical, and temperament-based factors. And then we also talk about some of the animals that are available for adoption or for fostering may not show up in the quiz. And so we link to a couple places where people can find even more animals that they can look at. So go ahead and click in the bottom corner, take the quiz. So this first question is asking about activity and energy level. So instead of putting highly active, we said world-class runner. Instead of slightly active, we put couch potato. So it's just kind of that fun and interactive, engaging type language. This next one is about what types of animals or kids that you might have in your household currently. And this question is weighted 100%. So if you were to select kids, it would weed out any animals on the back end in our database that had unknown or no, not good with kids. And so we decided that this question was very important. If you have cats, you probably don't want a dog that has a high prey drive. So we want to make sure that this question does weed out any animals that don't meet your criteria. This one's, I love the picture on this one. It's about coat length. This is letting people select for age. And we do, if you've seen on all of them, we kind of have an option that says, I'm not picky, or I want to see all of the dogs. And that's just to let people have a wider range of results come back if they truly aren't picky. And then finally, a question about gender. And that's the landing page once you take your quiz. That's 6 questions right now. We are planning on adding more and adjusting things, but you can go ahead and see your rough matches.
Yeah, let me see my dream dog.
Hopefully we get some responses. Yes. So out of all of the questions that Meg answered, out of, I think we have around 90 dogs available on our website, she matched to 32. And right now it's actually ordered by animals that have been on the website the longest. That's one thing that we do want to refine, is that you actually see your top like 100% match down to the lowest match in that order. So like I said, we're still working through some kinks, but this has a very, very good snapshot of the animals that you would most likely match with and would be a good fit for your household. All right. And then so these are just screenshots of the slides. I'm going to just quickly talk through about, you know, the reasoning why we asked the question, and also kind of the weighting of the questions and why we weighted questions a certain way. So this first one's obviously energy level. We feel like that's important, especially if you have a very active household or a very inactive household, or if you're a senior and you really just want somebody who can snuggle with. So we do feel like this is an important question. This one is not weighted 100%, and that just means that you can put that you want a couch potato, but you might get results back that say they have medium or high energy levels, but you'll just have a lower percentage match for that animal. Next. This one, like I mentioned when Meg was taking the quiz, this one is weighted at 100% because we do feel like if you have a child in the home, you wouldn't want to match with a dog that isn't good with children. Same thing with cats and dogs. So this one is weighted 100% and is one of the, I think, more important questions when people are looking for an animal. Next. This one's just for fun. You can kind of see the picture. It's silly. It's supposed to be, you know, that fun part of the quiz. And we also use the word floof instead of coat length or hair or something like that. just to make it kind of fun and lighthearted, this one is not weighted 100%. So if you put that you want a dog that has major floof, meaning very long hair, you might still get matches with medium or low, small, short coat length. Again, it'll just match at a lower percent. Next. So this question's the age question, and I think one thing that we could do with this question is kind of define what puppy and teenager mean. For us in the rescue or animal welfare world, I think those are kind of more common. Teenager is a young animal, but I think maybe to help people, we could add in a puppy is, you know, brand new to 6 months old, teenager 6 months to a year or so, because they do act differently and they have different energy levels. So otherwise, right now, this question is not weighted 100%, but you are also able to pick any and all. So if you want a puppy or adult, then you'll match higher than if you were to have selected teenager or elder, or if that dog is matched as a teenager, or when we say elder, it's a senior. Next. So this is about behavior and training, this question. And again, you can check all of them. This one is not weighted 100%. So if you select that I want my dog to be potty trained, it's not necessarily going to come back as all of these results are potty trained dogs, but they will have a higher percentage match. Next. And then this is the last question. We hadn't had this originally as a question, but through the process of creating the quiz, we did realize that some adopters already have an animal or specifically a dog in their home, and they are dog selective based on gender. So we did want to have this in the quiz. We obviously have the boy, girl, doesn't matter to me, and I imagine that that will be a very common answer for this question. But we did want to have it on there just to help sort even further. Next. That is the confirmation that you're finished with your quiz. You can click see your rough matches and then next. This is a screenshot of a quiz that I took a couple days ago, and you'll see I matched with 19. At the time, I think we had 98 dogs on our website, so it really did narrow it down. And then one thing that we really do enjoy are those little labels that says dog, cats, kids, and you can see that it's a green circle with a thumbs up. If they weren't good with a dog, cat, or kid, it would be a red circle with a thumbs down. So you can very easily visually see if they're good with dogs, cats, or kids. You can also see their full profile. If you were to click on the see full profile link, you can read that whole thing. And then where it says adopt me in that brown box, that will take you directly to our adoption application page on our website. So we are very excited to see how this goes. We've had it live for a couple weeks, so not really long enough to get accurate metrics on it, but we are excited to see how many of these quizzes actually end up being applications, which then end up becoming adoptions. And one of the ways we foresee this quiz being used is by our matchmaker, being able to share that with potential adopters so that they can help find more quickly an animal that they might match with. So I am going to hand it over to Jill to talk about the matchmaking program.
Thank you, Pam. So the matchmaking program has really evolved since I started back in October of 2020. And let me see if I can share my screen here, if Meg's able to kick that over to me. All right. So hopefully you can see what is up on my screen here. This is the database that we use for all of the animals in rescue. And this is a report that I was able to run that helps me find what type of animal people are looking for. And we have a lot of different ways that people connect with me as a matchmaker. It could be, you know, they've applied for an animal and it turned out that animal wasn't a good fit, so they want some help finding one that will be a good fit for their home. We also have on our website a link to email a matchmaker if they're just maybe not sure what they're looking for quite yet and want some guidance. And so then when they email me, they give me their list of requirements. Some are very, very specific, some are pretty general. And this report here allows me to kind of narrowed down some results for them, so they don't have to search through, you know, the generally 80 to 100 dogs that we have currently available on our website. And I can sort this for many different categories. Size is a big one. We have a lot of adopters that live in apartments or in associations that have size limits. So I'm able to see the current size of the dog. It's not super helpful when we're looking at baby animals because we don't know how big they're going to be, but it gives us a good starting off point. We're also able to sort it by house trained is another really big one. Let me do this there, and that'll list all the dogs that are house trained. We've got our big categories here, okay, with dogs, cats, and kids. And then we can sort by primary breed because we have a lot of people looking for breed specific animals, especially hypoallergenic animals like poodles or doodles, things like that. And then you can see the other requirements there. So once someone engages my matchmaking services, I will go through my list. I will send them some suggestions, and this all takes place through email. And you can see that that can be a little bit time consuming because then they have to go and view the animal's profile on our website and email me back, and then I can assign their application. So that's where I'm really excited to start using this quiz because it's more instantaneous for the adopters. They can just put in their requirements, see their matches right away, and then either ask me to transfer their application or submit a new application for the dog that's going to be a good match for them. And I can go back, hang on here, stop sharing my screen so we can go back to the presentation. There. All right, so in 2020, give or take a few, because I wasn't tracking as carefully in the beginning, we were able to match 20 dogs with adopters. And then from January to the beginning of June of this year, we were up to 49 dogs. And there's been some challenges in that process. Mainly in the beginning, our biggest challenge was dogs were getting snapped up so fast that by the time I would send suggestions to people, the dog would no longer be available. Now the bigger challenge is we have a lot of dogs available, but they're not exactly the type of dog that people are looking for. They generally want very specific breed types and you know, no behavior issues or medical issues or anything like that. Or they live in homes that just really restrict the type of dogs that they can bring into their homes. But we've had some great successes too. You can see some of them on the screen here. The top little blonde dog is Viper. And he was a very challenging dog to place. He was a Carolina dog. He needed pretty much a breed specific home that understood his needs. And he ended up being adopted by a woman who had been on my matchmaking list for several months. She'd been passed over for many other dogs, but it turned out she did have Carolina dog experience. They matched, and they did just great together. They clicked instantly. The senior kind of border collie looking dog there, that's Jolene. She is another one who is a little bit more difficult to place. She wasn't really fond of other dogs, cats, or kids, anything like that. And there was a woman who'd been looking for a larger senior dog for a while, and they met, and she adopted her on the spot, and it's just been a great match for her as well. Shadow, the remaining dog, he was adopted by a lady who had been really frustrated with the adoption process. This is kind of when things were pretty nuts with COVID. Everyone was adopting dogs left and right. She didn't feel like she was making any progress, and she was about to go to a breeder, but we were able to match her with this dog who was absolutely perfect for her household. She's completely in love with him, and she was so pleased with the process. So that's really kind of my role with the organization. And like I said, I think this compatibility quiz is really going to help us match more people with dogs that are going to be good fits for their household. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how it evolves.
Great, thanks, Jill. Okay, moving on to our continued, I guess, with our foster and adopter connections. In addition to our matchmaker position, Jill's position, we had also wrote into the grant that we were going to start doing virtual home visits. Now, again, this was back at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, before virtual anything was the norm. So this was groundbreaking, not really, but it was definitely new to us, and something that we wanted to institute because, as I said originally, our fosters and volunteers are spread throughout the entire state of Minnesota. And so if we had somebody who wanted to adopt or somebody who wanted to become a foster with us, they needed to have a home visit done. And so if we didn't have a volunteer near them or their schedules didn't line up, it would take a lot longer to get them approved to either adopt or become a foster with us. And now with virtual home visits, we can get the request and the home visit completed on the same day because it's all done, via smartphone or webcam or things like that. So not only has it sped up the process of getting fosters and adopters approved, it has sped up the placement as well because of that. So this is one of the things that used to hold us up the most. And so we were already kind of set up for this through the grant by the time COVID happened. So we had a good foundation to really expand our virtual home visits process. We also had the idea to have an internal phone system. So before we got this phone system, people could still call into Ruff Start. We had a number, but it was a voicemail only system. So they would have to leave a voicemail and then somebody would get back to them. Now we have an internal phone system, meaning members of the general public are able to call in and talk to an actual human person in real time. They don't have to necessarily wait for a call back. It does, of course, depend on what department they're calling and what time of day and things like that. But the idea behind it is to just have better connection and communication with the general public, our fosters, and our adopters. And then finally, we had planned to use a text message system, mostly internally for our fosters. Whenever we had an urgent dog needing placement, we would be able to send a mass text to our foster roster and hopefully find an animal or a foster home that would be able to take the animal more quickly than email or posting in our internal Facebook foster group that we have. And it turns out that it was kind of a bust for that specific idea. We did send out 2 text messages to our fosters, and we didn't get any responses from that. And it could have come from a number of reasons. Maybe the foster homes were full, maybe it didn't go quite to the right number, or things like that. But then COVID hit, and we were able to pivot because we already had this foundation in place. Ruff Start is very lucky to have our own vetting suite at our office. So our foster animals are able to have exams, appointments, vaccines, microchips, along with spay neuter surgeries, limb removal, cherry eyes, various surgeries done at the office. And because during COVID, we weren't allowing members of the general public into the building for safety, our fosters would text a specific number when they arrived. Our vetting team would go out, get the animal from the rear of the vehicle, bring it in. So there was no contact between the vetting team and the fosters. And then when the animal was finished with surgery, the vetting team would then just send a text message from that text number to the foster so that they knew that the animal was ready to be picked up. When they came back and arrived, same thing would happen. They would text and they would bring the animal back out. So it worked out very, very well, and we're actually still using this text message system, not quite as often, but it is great, especially when we're doing transports from out of state to our office, making sure everybody knows when to arrive, when their animals are going to be done and through vetting. So even though it's not necessarily what we originally anticipated using this text message system for, it has come in very, very handy, and we're very grateful that we were already set up to use that system. Next. Okay, so again, as part of this whole compatibility match program, we wanted to be able to showcase our dogs that weren't available or eligible to attend in-person adoption events. So again, going virtual. And the dogs that couldn't attend events, either it was because of geography, they were just too far from our in-person events, or they had some behavioral issue like stranger danger, dog reactivity, something like that. So we decided to do these virtual adoption events where our in-house part-time staff member that is our videographer, created these really, really well done and put together videos, about a minute or less. And we did this for 10 different dogs. And these were our dogs that were a little bit harder to place. And the idea is that we would share them on our social media outlets, including Facebook and our YouTube channel. And the idea was, of course, that they would be seen a lot more. They would be video recorded in an environment where they were, not stressed, that they were familiar with. So kind of showing off their best self. And unfortunately, these videos, even though they're very, very well done and put together, they just had very low engagement, both on our Facebook and our YouTube channel. I think that the video with the most views on YouTube ended up having like 79 views or something. And so we decided to pivot, and we knew we wanted to continue to do these, some type of video for our harder to adopt dogs. So we decided to try out Facebook Live, and Ruff Start has a very active and engaged Facebook following. And so we were able to do a handful of virtual adoption events via Facebook Live, and those actually performed very, very well. And I am happy to report that all of the dogs that we had in the original 10 videos and the videos that we did on Facebook Live have all been adopted. I do want to show you one of the videos that we did put together to kind of show you the vibe and what we were going for, just to be more fun and show the dog's kind of best self. So Meg, if you want to go ahead and play the video. So that was King, and there is actually audio to the video. It's a fun kind of upbeat instrumental piece of music. It doesn't play well over GoToWebinar, but so those were the ones that we did, and everyone on staff and all of our fosters loved them. It just didn't translate well to the general public. And then the last kind of pillar of our ComPAWtibility Match program is our post-adoption support, and it has two different areas. And the first area is our email welcome series. And this is probably my favorite part of everything that we did for this program. So templates were created in our email marketing software. We use Constant Contact. A lot of people use MailChimp. I believe they have the same capabilities. And the templates were created by our creative coordinator, who is a part-time staff position. But if you have somebody that you have on team or a volunteer that has some graphic design experience, they could probably whip something up pretty easily. And then our automation, it's a functionality of the email marketing software platform, but it can be a little confusing, but we did end up having a tech-savvy marketing volunteer able to set the automation up for us. So emails are sent out to adopters at various points after adoption, and these emails have a huge open and click rate compared to our regular emails, and their average unsubscribe rate is 0.14%. And I will mention that the first email in the series is a manual email from our adoption follow-up coordinator, and that includes their intake photo, kind of their origin story, I guess, and if we know it, and also their vaccine records. Then once that email is sent, their email address goes into kind of the pipeline to start getting these email welcome series emails. Next. So I'm going to show you what they look like, what we included. And so this is the first email that our adopters get, and this is at their 1 month adoptiversary. So we just congratulate them again on 1 month. We talk about the 3-through-3 rule of animals settling in. We link to our adopter resource page on our website to remind everyone that, you know, they can always reach out to our adoption follow-up coordinator if they have any issues, questions, or concerns. And then I also wanted to share metrics for all of these emails. We have a 76% open rate for this first month email, a 54% click rate, and a 0.15% unsubscribe rate. Our normal emails that we send, like newsletters, are usually about 20 to 25% open rate, and a click rate of somewhere between 6 and 10%. It really depends on the type of email that we're sending. So just a huge open and click rate compared to our other emails, and of course a very, very low unsubscribe rate. Next. So the second email in the automated series of emails is at 3 months. So we suggest to recent adopters to check out our upcoming events, and that links to our events page on our website. Again, it gives them a reminder that they can always follow up with our adoption follow-up coordinator if they have any issues, questions, and it's usually at this point that they will ask for their vaccine records because they missed it in the first email, so we're able to have that engagement with them. We also have a closed private adopter Facebook group called Ruff Start Rescue Reunion, so we link to that and encourage them to join and share pictures and updates. And at this point too, we also ask them to submit a review for us to, right now, Great Nonprofits, but in the future that could change to Facebook, Google, Yelp, whatever it is that we're asking folks to submit a review for. And metrics again for this, while a little lower than the first one, still very, very high compared to our regular emails. Next. And then our next email in the series is at 6 months. We encourage adopters to share their story by emailing us back, and we're able to use those stories and post them on our social media, use them for our email newsletters, and then we also use that as an opportunity to engage with the adopter. And so we always respond to those, saying thank you for sharing their story, ask for permission, of course, to share on social media. And then we also ask if you know, they would be able to write a review if they love their animal so much that they're willing to reply and send us sometimes pages of updates on their animals and lots of pictures. They're usually more than happy to write a review for us. So we link those as well in the reply email. And then this also has a soft donation ask in it. And then the metrics for this are a little bit higher than the 3-month email, and much higher than our regular emails. Next. And then the last email in the email series is the Adoptiversary, the 1 year. It gives our adopters another reminder to join our Facebook group for our alums. And then it also suggests that they use very specific hashtags when and if they share about their animal's adoption anniversary. So then we can reshare it. And then metrics for this, again, very high. I will add that we started this adoption welcome series in, I believe, June of last year. So we only have about 3 months, 2.5 months worth of adopters that have received this email so far. This is around 260 people have received this email, but it has more than 50% open rate and a 6% click rate, and 0 people have unsubscribed from this email. So I think that the email welcome series is something that can easily be implemented and added into your stewardship program for your adopters. And it's something that I've really enjoyed seeing all of the updates from our adopters from this welcome series. Next. And then finally, the last part of our compatibility match program in our post-adoption support area is veterinary support for adopters. So this was written into our grant from PEDIGREE that we would offer up to $500 of support post-adoption for animals that needed to get surgery or some kind of treatment. And this is to mitigate returns and to keep an animal with their loving family. The amount is paid directly to the vet clinic. And this picture is actually of Rex, who took advantage of this. He did need to have some kind of vetting done, and to be able to keep him in his forever home, they were able to secure this $500 mini grant, and that was kind of made the difference between having to surrender versus keep the animal. So it's something that we really enjoy, that we're able to offer to our adopters as kind of in case they need some additional support once the animal has been adopted. And I also will add too that the anything that an adopted animal is getting, sick with or needing a surgery, it would be something that we as Ruff Start would not have known while they were in foster care. We don't adopt out sick animals. I want to make sure we make that clear. It could be something that's rare that we wouldn't necessarily test for, that's not common for rescues or shelters to test for. It could be that the animal got into an accident or got sick or something like that. So I just wanted to add that. Go ahead, next. So final thoughts and takeaways over the past 2 years of working on this ComPAWtibility match program. Challenges, definitely COVID-19. Every single piece of our program had to pivot in some way because of COVID-19. We also had to divert staff time that was originally intended to be working on the various parts of the grant programs to, work on the high demand for animals, or work on messaging around COVID-19 and new protocols, procedures, things like that. We also had a number of volunteer and staff transitions throughout the last 2 years that kind of threw a wrench into some of our plans. And then again, the developers on the quiz, we've had some frustrations just with timing and the developers not having as much experience with our animal database as we do. And so just making sure that we were always on the same page, that was definitely a challenge. But outcomes that we've seen and will continue to see is that we have better and more consistent communication with our fosters and adopters, and that we've also been able to implement automation and technology to connect with adopters and potential adopters, which provides better customer service experience for them while not really taking that much more staff time. So we're trying to not add to staff workload while providing a better experience. So that is all that we have. So I think it's time for questions.
Yes, so I know a couple of you already wrote in, but if you have questions or either feedback, I know some of the things I was thinking of was other questions that we might use in the quiz or that we might have looked at before. What's popular in your shelter? Is there a common theme there? So the first question I have here, Pam, is what shelter software did you say you used?
We use rescue groups for our animal database software.
And would your shelter consider going breedless? And if yes, how would that affect your quiz and connections?
That's a great question. And I am not the person to answer that question. I'm not in the programs area, so I don't see that on a day-to-day. I do know that we are working towards an adopters welcome policy of being much more open to adopters having conversations with them, not just automatically denying applications because of X, Y, or Z. And I do personally, I do think that it's more about the temperament of an animal rather than the specific breed. So when we can, if somebody is very adamant about a breed, but really they're more looking at, they want a specific breed because of the temperament, we can usually find them an animal that has a very, very similar, if not exact temperament they're looking for, but it's not necessarily the breed they thought. So definitely a conversation worth having.
And here's the next question. For the post-adoption medical support, do you have a time limit for the $500 to be used by if needed?
Oh, good question. So at least so far, anybody who has come to us asking for some post-adoption help with their vetting bills, their animal has already either received the treatment or they went in for the initial exam, found out they needed treatment, and then it was scheduled. So we're paying the vet clinic directly. We're not paying an individual. So the service or slash surgery or treatment would have needed to be rendered before we would make a payment.
Great question. So I wanted to look at, as others are writing their questions now. So when you started the quiz portion of this, Pam, it actually started out with a lot of questions, right?
Yes, yes. So originally, I think the quiz had 10 questions on it. And we ended up having to remove about half of them because how the quiz was coded and how the back end and like our rescue group's database, how the information is entered into the database, we weren't able to consistently get the answers from the quiz to pull correctly, usually because the field we were trying to pull from was a variable data field, meaning that it would be typed in. So there was user error, there were typos, sometimes there was nothing written at all. And so, yes, we did end up getting rid of some questions just purely for technical reasons. And then other questions, we weren't 100% sure that we thought they kind of moved the dial for an adopter. And usually those questions also had, some type of coding or technical difficulty as well. So that's why we wanted to parse it down a little bit. The fewer questions, the more likely somebody would actually finish the quiz. We didn't want it to be arduous for anybody. It shouldn't feel like you're back in school taking a test. We wanted it to be fun and engaging. And, at the end of the day, once you click See My Ruff Matches, to get a really solid list of animals that you would match really well with.
I think that's great. It's just a continuous learning journey.
Yes, for sure.
Any other questions or feedback? I'll give you one more minute. Good. I am super thankful to have had Pamela and Jill from Ruff Start Rescue share their program with us. I find it just fascinating how much all of us have pivoted during these last year to 2 years. What's working then might have not worked now. And it's just we're always all learning. So it's been great to have them to share their experience. And I want to thank all of you all for joining us today and taking the time to do that. So we will have a recording of this webinar available tomorrow. I will get that sent out with your emails, or you can always find it on the Pedigree Foundation's website. Any other questions before I let us go? Okay, perfect. Then we're done. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.